Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If everybody's all muted here. I'll call the public hearing to order. Before we get started, I do have a statement to read. This council meeting is being convened in order to hold public hearings on land use matters. The public and anyone who believes their interest in property is affected may speak or present written submissions to council. Everyone will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at the hearing. No one should feel discouraged from making their views known. Those of you who wish to speak or have registered with the city clerk should, after being recognized by the chair, begin by clearly stating your name and your address. If you have provided a written submission, please make this known at the beginning of your presentation. All written submissions will be retained by the city clerk, will form part of the record of the hearing. Each speaker may address the hearing a maximum of twice. The length of your first presentation will be limited to a maximum of 10 minutes. Your comments must be relevant and not obstruct the hearing. Any additional presentation, which must be on new information, will be limited to 3 minutes. Members of council may ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the function of council members during a public hearing is to listen to the views of the public, not to debate the merits of the matters with citizens. Any debate will occur at the subsequent vote. The order of proceedings for each item will normally be as follows. Firstly, the city clerk will briefly describe the matter under consideration. Then the applicant or the agent will be invited to make a brief presentation of up to 10 minutes. Then the city clerk will identify any written submissions received. Then oral submissions from the public will be heard and any further written submissions will be received. And finally, the hearing will be closed and matters may be considered. Please note that delegations must present in a respectful manner without interference or comment from the audience. City Council is committed to ensuring a safe and respectful environment and supports the rights of the community to bring comments forward. Please observe these rules. If you have any questions or concerns with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, direct your comments to the chair. Now, Councillor Liu, you have a point of order, or was that?
No, nothing. Sorry, I must have bumped something.
Okay, no problem. All right, so Mr. Clerk, first item.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item is Richmond Official Community Plan Bylaw 7100, Amendment Bylaw 10390, and Richmond Zoning Bylaw 8500, Amendment Bylaw 10389, RZ 18836107. Location is at 3360, 3380, and a portion of 3440 Sexsmith Road. The applicant is IBI Group, and the purpose of the OCP designation amendment is to amend the city center area plan, specific land use map, Capstan Village, by removing one of the two institution designations on the subject site for the purpose of accurately reflecting the development's proposed consolidation of institution uses in a single location at the northwest corner of Capstan Way and Garden City Road. And the purpose of the zoning amendment is to rezone the subject property from Assembly ASY, single detached RS1 F, and school institutional use SI to a site-specific zone created for the subject development residential / limited commercial and religious assembly ZMU 51 Capstan Village City Center to permit the extension of Ketchikan Road and the construction of a 2-lot medium to high-density mixed-use development comprising of 392 apartment units in 4 towers, including 49 affordable housing units and 20 market rental housing units, pedestrian-oriented retail along a portion of Capstan Way, and the relocation of the Richmond Capstan Alliance Church from 3360 Sexsmith Road to a new 4-story, 2,853 meter squared church and a childcare facility at the corner of Capstan Way and Garden City Road. First reading is November 14th, 2022.
All right, is the applicant here this evening? Now, did you wish to make a presentation or just await questions?
We're here to answer any questions you guys have.
Okay. Now, just before we get to the rest of it, I'll go to Mr. Craig to speak about the Hurling House. We have a memo in our materials about that, and there have been certain discussions about it. If you can outline the situation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Following council consideration of first reading, staff and the applicant did investigate further the Hurling residence. Subject to those discussions, the developer has agreed to not demolish the structure. that prior to proceeding with any development on the Phase 2 portion of the site, the Hurling residents would be moved to the Phase 3 portion of the development site, which is not subject of this application. The intent would be that the Hurling residents would be integrated into the future redevelopment of the Phase 3 site. Should council agree with these revised considerations, second and third reading should be granted, subject to the revised considerations attached to the memo from myself dated December 14th, 2022.
All right, to the applicants, those are appropriate, those terms? You've agreed to those? Okay. Any written submissions?
Your worship, there are 55 form letter submissions expressing support for the project.
Oh, is that all? Okay. We have, on each of these items, we have people on Zoom, we also have people here. So each time first of all, go to the Zoom people. Is Xenia Wong on the line? Mr. Clerk, do we know? She's not on the line. Okay. Is there anybody here wishing to speak to us on this item on the agenda? Anyone? Anyone?
Second and third.
No. Moving second and third, that would be subject to that would include, just a minute. Including the revised rezoning considerations is set out in the memo from the Director of Development dated December 14th, 2022.
So moved.
So that's moved and seconded. Discussion on that. Counselor Day.
I had a couple of questions. On page PH 19, it talks about Lot A and the building that's going to be there. The overall dwelling mix is going to be 241 bedroom, 152 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom, and 2 3 and 3 bedroom, 39%. So my question is, market strata is 323 of those units, and affordable is only 49 of those units. Market rental is 20. Is there a way to increase the Lemur units, and is there a way to increase the market rental units? Because otherwise, the rest are just going to be sold to who knows who.
Okay, go ahead.
Through your worship to Councillor Day, or I'll ask Ms. Suzanne Carter to respond to that.
Okay.
So through your worship to Councillor Day, the proposal that the developer has put forward is consistent with the affordable housing and market rental policy that's in place based on the timing of the project coming in. So 10% affordable housing and 0.1 FAR of the overall residential floor area is going to be market rental. So at this point, this is what the developer's proposal is, and we have no other information.
Okay, just, thank you. Another question about the rent. So on page PH 20, we're talking about the Lemur rental units, and the rent, I'll just give an example, for a 2-bedroom is $1,218 under the Lemur rates, which is about, I understand, 20% less than normal market rates. What is the actual affordable housing rate for rent on a 2-bedroom?
Affordable housing rate as of,
Normal affordable housing, not Lemur.
well, under what definition?
Under what we would normally have as, I have it in my other binder, unfortunately I didn't bring it, but as I recall, it was about $980.
No, let's ask Ms. Carter Huffman.
So I believe we do have a representative here from our affordable housing staff. They might be better able to answer this. The only information I would have would be the information to do with the Lemur rents.
Yeah. I think it's 980.
Oh, your chair is over there for a reason, so that the camera can pick you up. And you can take that chair and put it over.
He fits
You,
over.
oh, for heaven's sakes. So, where you were, put it where you were.
Yep.
Sir, you put that a little over, so
Okay.
you're not on top of each other.
All
Through your worship, Councillor Day, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, okay, so we're talking about lemur rates for rent, and in the report, it states it's $1,218 for a two-bedroom. I'm just gonna use two-bedroom as a apples to apples. But the actual affordable housing rate, I believe, for affordable housing, normal affordable housing, is, I think it's like $980, isn't it?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, I'm not familiar with another definition of affordable housing that the city uses. A common metric for affordable housing as outlined in our affordable housing strategy is rent that does not exceed 30% of a household's income.
So where did the $1,218 come from?
Through your worship, to your worship, that is a affordable housing rate that was set through the city's affordable housing strategy. It's based on BC Housing's housing income limit report that was produced at that time.
All right, Councillor Hobbs.
Yeah, through your worship, no question. I just wanted to thank staff and the applicant for working together to save the Hurling House. I thought that was a very good outcome, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
All right, so with that, we're going to call the question. Oh, we have some more questions. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did speak to this when it came up in planning and again at council, and I thought there was some opportunity then to ask for amendments or to have it referred back. Any slight referral back would have not given this that kind of grandfather clause that was being sought after, which allows it to fall under the old language, old rules, old amount of affordable housing that was from a different time. We're now in a housing crisis. Just today I read that the average home rental per month is now up to a record of $2,024 to rent a home in Canada. And it's not showing any signs of stopping. This development before us here is only going to give us 23 units that are 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom rentals out of 392. So it's not going to be addressing many of the aspects that we need large projects like this to do, especially when they didn't need to purchase a lot of individual properties from people. They purchased a parking lot that was used for a long time, people in Richmond to commute outside of the city. And there was also in this proposal, we saw, I think in planning, there was a number of renditions of this site, and there could have been more. So clearly the developer and the architect have amazing expertise at being able to rework the plans, and they're going up to 8 floors in some sites where you actually could be going up to 14 floors in this zone. I'm very thankful that they were able to, again, accommodate the need to protect the Heritage House and find a way to utilize it. As I mentioned previously, the Hobbit House, the one on King Ed in Vancouver, is an exact kind of idea like this. There's a big development around it that Heritage House now is like a sought after place to rent, and it's actually going for about $6,000 a month to rent that small little Hobbit house, and that's kind of what we could potentially get, or the developer could potentially be looking at with this site. Another comment that I brought up is around the trees. There's 36 trees that are being removed that I in my mind are great specimens that have a long life ahead of them. And as City Council approved, asked the Polygon development site to the south to rework where they put their park space, that was what could have happened here. Council could have given some direction to say, hey, for the park on your site, instead of using what is now a parking lot for the future park, you could have used a site on the property that already had park values. And even if the trees go down, at least you're preserving the soil where you can grow future big trees as opposed to ones that have nowhere to put their roots. So with that, I haven't seen much interest from members of council to take this any further, to ask for more, for better. So I will not be asking any amendments or referrals. I will not be supporting it. Thanks.
Councillor Rao.
Yes, as I mentioned last time when this was being brought up on council, I mentioned that I am supportive of this project. I think this is a good project. Of course, we would like to have more affordable housing units and other things. However, it cannot be done without having other problems being created, but if we move things around. My own concern at the time was, or my major concern at the time was the heritage building. I would like us to make the most effort to preserve this house, and I'm glad that staff come up with a very informative report, research regarding the historical value of this place. And I'm also thankful to the developer for willing to preserve this house and find a way to keep it and make it into part of the next phase of the development. So since this concern of mine was being addressed, I'm going to continue to support this project.
Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question about the Hurling residence, the Heritage House. Thank you so much to the developers for being able to work that into phase 3 of the project and retaining that residence. That's really important, and that's great. My question is, does the protection of the Heritage House as far as it moving to the new location, is that specific to this project only, or is it like a covenant on the house now on the property in perpetuity? So if they didn't end up building it or they sold it, would we go through the same thing again with the next development if for any reason this didn't go through, or if it didn't go through tonight, for example?
Through your worship to Councillor Galanders, there will be a legal agreement registered on title, as Mr. Craig outlined before, requiring the developer to agree to no demolition of the house and movement to the 3rd phase of the development, at which time it will be further assessed through a rezoning application for that site.
Okay, so it stays on title?
Correct.
Okay, and just one more question. Are there any provisions or safeguards in place to make sure that the house is maintained and protected from, okay, that's great. And just to comment on what Councillor Wolf was saying about the trees, I truly wish that when we had parcels up for redevelopment, when there is a mature stand of trees, that a developer would consider, or the staff would direct the developer to consider doing their park area in established natural areas, just because it's not just a matter of replanting trees, which is fine for carbon sequestration, but we're also in a biodiversity crisis. So when we take down mature trees and affect that soil, we won't get the same type of trees that can support wildlife. So I do wish that we would orient buildings around existing natural areas. But for me, I like a lot of other things about the project, and it has a lot of support, and I'll be in support of it. Thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. I also would like to thank the developer for being able to save the house. I think it's an important part of our heritage, and I think it's important to be saving our heritage and doing what we can. I recognize that we aren't going to solve a housing crisis by not approving homes, and I think in this high inflation economy, causing undue delays, it's unfair and it increases costs, and it doesn't support increasing housing supply or creating more homes for people. I was part of the council. We brought in our affordable housing policy. We've since increased that affordable housing requirement that's required by developers, as well as adding the market rental requirement to that. And I think it's important that we set out the rules, we set them out in an orderly fashion, and that we apply the rules in place to the applications as they come in. If we want to increase that, we were going to revisit, I think, the affordable housing thing after 1 year. We've only just passed the most recent one. We may decide next month that we want something else, but we have to do things in an orderly manner, just the same as we wouldn't suddenly start changing the graduation criteria for students halfway through the year and then saying that, oh, well, you probably should have taken 3 extra courses last semester, because wouldn't it be nice if you were smarter when you tried to apply to university? I don't think that's fair, I don't think it's reasonable, and I don't think it creates a good environment for getting things done. We get things done by following our own rules and our own policies and getting on with it. And I think this is a great great project. I think the big communities come together, faith community, developer, and I think staff's been working hard on this as well. I know recently we've been looking at, saving mature stands of trees, and I think this one had come forward far before that concept had happened, because I know in a previous development, staff had actually told the developer that they should orient it a certain way and take out the trees, and the developer said, fine, we'll do it the way you want. And I'm sure this developer has been told by staff to orient things a certain way, and the trees weren't the main consideration. I think as we move forward, I think staff's heard what we've said, and they heard that a year and a half ago, and I think there's an opportunity now to move forward in an orderly fashion and to have clarity for people when they're trying to do developments or build things. So I'll be supporting this, and thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, for the question to staff. And on it, if we look on page 16, I'm actually very happy to support this. It's followed through and follows our policy. Staff, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'd like to thank the developer for not only keeping the house, but moving it, but also paying for it. So thanks very much for contributing the money to move it, and at no cost to the taxpayer in Richmond. So I appreciate that, and it's good to see a 1932 home historically named after a builder, not necessarily a resident of Richmond, but built for residents of Richmond at the time. So thank you again, David, for doing that and providing it. Yeah, I think we need to step out of the box on this particular one. I look at the overall project. We've got some new amenities in this development. We have a new church coming. We never had that before. We've got a new childcare facility. It's going to look after 35 to 40 children with outdoor play area. It's a bonus to us, a benefit, because those are part of our policies and things that we strive to get. So with the new facilities, it's going to be adding to our community on it. And we're also getting affordable housing units according to the policy of when the individuals applied. And we're getting that. We're also getting some market rental, which we're looking for more rental in Richmond. We're looking at all kinds of rental. We're not looking just for affordable. We're looking at everything from subsidized all the way through to market. So this particular application, Your Worship, fits what we are looking for in terms of our council goals and what we're having. Yes, we can always push for more, but we have something, and it's going to be a better community because of this. So I'll be supporting it.
All right, now, Councillor Day, you've spoken before.
That was cut off before I had a chance to make my comments regarding what my voting on this. So I actually had another question too, but I won't bother asking that. So this development is a big development with 392 apartments, 49 of which are affordable housing, LEMA rates, which is 20% market rent, and 20 market rental units. I would have liked to have seen a lot more rentals in this development, because I think that's what we need today. I am, however, happy that the church and daycare and facility are in this development. I think that speaks to the community and what we need. I'm also happy that we, a while ago, made a rule that you cannot any longer forbid rentals in a condo building. Richmond bylaws now requires that you must be allowed to rent it. Why is this important? Because Richmond was the second highest in collecting the vacancy and speculation tax in Metro Vancouver. Vancouver was number one. We came in number two and collected almost $9 million because places were sitting empty because they're not allowed to rent them. But at least in this situation, you will be able to rent those units if you are a speculator, which I suspect many of them will be. So with the new rules, we would have gotten a lot more affordable housing and a lot more market rental. So I'm of the opinion that better to wait and get it right than build it and cheat yourself out of what the community really, really needs. So it's not that I don't like the development. I think there's lots of great things about it. I'm glad they're saving the old house, but we could do better. And if not now, when? So I will not be supporting it.
All right, with that, we're going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Those opposed? This is carried with Councillors Day and Wolf opposed.
Move second, third on 1039,
All right,
bylaw 85.
all right, so that's moved and it's seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? It is carried with Councillors Day and Wolf opposed. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item number 2 is Richmond zoning bylaw 8500, amendment bylaw 10418, RZ 21944801. Location is 20411 and 20451 Westminster Highway. The applicant is Choice School for Gifted Children's Society, and the purpose is to rezone the subject property from agricultural AG1 and assembly ASY to a new site-specific zone, agricultural.
Excuse me, we are carrying on a meeting. Leave if you wish, but do it silently. Please carry on.
Thank you, Your Worship. Site-specific zone, agriculture and education, ZA5, Westminster Highway, East Richmond, to allow the existing education uses to continue and construct a new classroom building and amend the assembly ASY zone to remove the subject property's site-specific exemption. First reading was November 14th, 2022.
All right, is the applicant here this evening? Did you wish to make a presentation or just await questions? All right, any written submissions?
None, Your Worship.
Anybody wishing to speak to us on this item on the agenda? No one? All right,
Move second and third.
moved and seconded. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you. I'm pleased that, to support this at this time and finally got here because this particular institution as a school has undergone a turbulent travel to where they are, and I'm glad to see they're expanding. I can remember when we on Westminster Highway we had planes flying over and crop dusting and what have you. So I'm very happy to see them get forward on it, and I'm happy to see hopefully that the Agricultural Land Commission is happy with what we're doing with it as well.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So this is an existing school that's been around for a very, very long time, and they just want to add a small addition. And given, if you look at page PH 116, it's surrounded by business. Even though it's in the agricultural zone, this particular building will not negatively affect the agricultural land around it. So I'll be supporting this.
All right. I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Chair, Your Worship, the item number 3 is Richmond zoning bylaw 8500, amendment bylaw 10423, RZ 17-782750. Location is 6851 and 6871 Elmbridge Way. The applicant is Landa Oval Development Limited, and the purpose is to rezone the subject property from Industrial Business Park IB1 to a new site-specific zone, high-density mixed-use ZMU52, Oval Village City Center, to permit a high-density mixed-use development comprising of 356 apartment units, a hotel and pedestrian-oriented retail along River Road, Elmbridge Way, and a new road to be constructed along the subject site's entire west frontage. First reading is November 14th, 2022.
All right, is the applicant here on this one? Did you wish to make a presentation or just await questions?
We're here to answer questions.
Okay. Now, any written submissions?
Your Worship, there we received 5 written submissions, 2 in favor from Duncan Chu from Marriott International and Riaz Devji from Azara Housing Society, and 3 expressing concern with regards to the traffic and bicycle parking from Air June Ma and Dana Graff and another unnamed Richmond resident.
All right. Now, in terms of submissions from the floor, David Feldstein, are you there?
I'm on Zoom.
Okay. Did you wish to speak to us about this?
Yes, please.
All right, please introduce yourself.
Good evening. It's David Feldstein. I live at Aura at 5511 Hollybridge Way in Richmond. I've lived in Richmond a good part of my life and also ran a very large children's furniture factory just south of Ironwood Mall in Richmond called Storecraft. So I'm well enamored to business, etc. I'm also vice president of our strata, ESP 1236 in Richmond for the Aura community. And I'm also with our president, Lee Tian Lee, who will present some videos as I speak. The current situation of Aura, we're right across from the Oval on River Road, Hollybridge Way and Elmbridge Way. And the new Landa project is planned to be just east of us on those same streets. We have 324 condo units, a very large commercial T&T restaurants, physios, etc. And we have 0 dedicated parking for our guests at this point. 100% of all of our traffic runs through the laneway that is proposed to be expanded for the Landa project. That laneway runs from River Road across to Elmbridge Way. So all of our condo residents, 324 of us, our guests, our food deliveries, our garbage, our moving trucks, service trucks, Uber, cabs, food delivery, visitors to the commercial must all enter through that current back lane only. So all our physical truck traffic, car traffic is on that one laneway. The plan has been explained to us with the new development is that laneway will just be widened, same access, it's just going to be widened, and then traffic, cars, trucks, taxis, Ubers, etc., will have access the same as we have access off of either River Road or Elmbridge Way. We understand also there will be a newer additional laneway built west of that at the end of the project, and with a traffic light. We will have no traffic lights at all. So our current situation is basically untenable, and maybe Edward can just show a little video of some of that traffic that goes on there. And now we're talking about adding larger condo development and 180 odd hotel project with traffic coming into that area. So once you see these videos, we request that that laneway not be done. And at the same time, we plead that we be given the right with the city to allow us to have cut-ins on River Road, Hollybridge Way, and Elbridge, so at least people can drop off people, Uber can pick up people, moving trucks can pop in there to deliver furniture, etc., etc. As an example of that, Landa have a project right near us completed on Gilbert and Elbridge, just across from Rona, and they have a cut-in that was allowed, and it's very nice and it works very well. And again, their access for their project has no neighboring ICBC that is a neighbor there. They don't share that laneway that we're being asked to share. So again, we plead not to have that shared laneway, which is just going to cause tremendous chaos, and at the same time allow us, please, to have cut-ins, safe cut-ins with a short-term parking off of River Road, Hollybridge Way, and Elmbridge. And Edward, could you quickly just show?
No, sir, you finish off, please. He'll be the next.
Oh, I am finished. Thank you.
All right. Actually, just a minute, Edward. I thought I had Edward on my list, so, okay, you've got a couple minutes left for Edward.
Okay, Lee Tien Lee, you might have.
I have Lee Tien Lee, is that
Yes.
Edward?
Sorry, that's his name.
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll wait. We'll finish you off and then we'll go to him.
Okay.
All right? So,
Yes. So I'm finished, and thank you for your time.
all right, so let's go to Lee Tien Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship and the Council. So can I share my screen?
Can he share his screen? Yes, apparently.
Yeah. Okay. So the current situation of this backlink is we have 3 entry of this backlink. The most busy is TNT loading bay. The major factors that made this link congested is the service truck and delivery truck that stops, taking half of this lane, reducing the traffic flow by 50% and traffic exit and entering the parking lot, like this arrow. So will cause a slow movement and congested. So I have a few video to share. Yeah, the lane is very narrow and there's a pillar in the loading bay. It's very hard for the truck to get into. So next is typical the garbage pickup truck. Okay, the next is also the delivery truck. It happens every day. This is the same. So the suggestion from our Strata Council is it's better to not put an entry of this new development on this link, like the latest development of Landa, the Cascade City. So they share a link with ICBC Claim Center, but there is no entry of this link. So if the city wish to widen this link, so 1.5 meters is not enough. It's better to have a 3 lane So that's the suggestion from our strata council. So that's all for me. Okay.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
I just have a question of staff. Is it set in stone how wide that lane is going to be? Or could that be something that's adjusted at the development permit stage or something?
Worship, the rezoning application requires that the lane be widened by 3 meters, 1.5 meters of pavement plus a 1.5 meter sidewalk. This could be further looked at as part of the development permit. Having said that, I would also point out that this proposed development will also have driveway access to the new road that will be developed on the west side of the property.
All right, so that lane is going to be widened. Okay, Councillor Day.
So there's going to be extra 3 meters of pavement, which is basically 9 or 10 feet. And then, of course, access to the new hotel. Do you think that that's anything close to being a remedy for the problems that you have now? Can he hear me?
I don't know.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Yeah, do you think that adding the 3 meters, which is approximately 10 feet of extra lane, will alleviate the problems that you're experiencing now?
No, because they are only 1.5 meter for the vehicle. The other 1.5 meter is for pedestrian. So 1.5 meter is not enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do, further question. So this, this development, it sounds to me like it's in the wrong place. Do you feel that it can be shifted onto the existing lot, or do you think it's just the wrong place in general?
I think from my personal opinion, the hotel can be shifted to another corner, not this corner.
Oh, okay.
All right, Council, okay.
Well, I want to question the staff.
Well, okay, let's hold further questions till we get through all the speakers on this, and then we'll have questions, okay? Councillor Howe,
Yes.
you're okay with that? Okay.
My question is
For him?
Yeah.
Okay, a question for Mr. Lee. Councillor Howe.
Yes, Mr.
Mr. Lee, actually, I use that back lane very frequently for transportation purpose. And I affirm that, what you show us is the real situation. Now, I want to ask you one thing. How many vehicles coming in and out of the back lane and into your building on the average every day? How many cars are we talking about?
1,000 at least.
Okay.
Yeah, because our gate, we have a calculator, so the gate will open like 30,000 times a month. So every day is 1,000 times.
That's the same laneway for parking for TNT
Yes.
and for others as well.
But TNT is not going to go away, right? They will still have to use that entrance.
Right, he's not suggesting that, he's suggesting other remedies.
Okay.
Councillor Galanders,
I actually have my hand up to ask the previous speaker, David Feldstein, a question. But then,
okay, go ahead.
thank you, just briefly. Just a quick question. When you mentioned that there's no guest parking in the Aura for your guests, that was for visitors to your units. I think my mic went off, thank you. Where do guests park then? Do they park in the parking lot for the TNT and whatnot? And how is that parking lot traffic?
Actually, this is a mixed use building, so we don't have a guest parking, so we have to share with the TNT.
Yes, and so how is that parking lot functioning as far as your experience with customers in, like, 5 Road in Canby, for example, it's impossible to get a parking spot. Do you know how the parking is for people who want to go to TNT, or is it being occupied by many people who are actually visitors of the building? What's your opinion on the functioning of the parking lot?
Currently, there's no functioning problem. The problem is they start to charge a fee for the parking, so the people is not happy with that.
Okay, thank you.
Because other condo, they do have visitor parking as free, but we have to share with Oni. So Oni start to charge a parking fee from September.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next speaker then is Yulia Liam.
Morning, Your Worship and the councilors. My name is Yulia Lim from Barton Associates. I'm just here as a traffic consultant for the project on behalf of the applicant. So if there is any transportation questions or any other concerns about transportation, I'm here to answer the questions. I believe my colleague is also there in person, along with the
All right.
applicant.
Okay, the next speaker then is someone named Lam.
Hi, it's me. Can I share my computer? I mean my screen.
I guess. Go ahead.
Can you? Okay. To answer the question that the counselor asked before, because I upload the video of the you can see from this video. Right now is I'm entering East Lane. So this is the
We can't see whatever you've loaded.
Oh, I'm sharing my video. I mean my computer. Can you see my computer screen?
No.
Okay. I tried one of them. Oh, screen. Share. Can you see it now?
I think so.
Okay. This is, okay, I have to play again. This is the video that I want to share with you. This is the TNT parking lot. You can see that at nighttime we have a lot of car coming in and out of like all our public parking. And this is the recycling loading area, and this is our residential area, and this is the garbage, and this is the TNT commercial parking area. So this thing is actually very busy during daytime and nighttime as well. So my question is, can the proposed development, they have a residential parking entrance, can it be relocated to Ambridge Way rather than put it in here in our on this East Lane? And also my other question is, right now you can see that from here we have a hotel loading bay. They said that the hotel loading bay can hold about like 4 medium-sized or 6 small-sized car. It's a one lane. And then if the car is coming from Whitford Road to here, if one of the car park here, and then I think that all the car behind it has to wait. And also the egress point is opposite to this is the garbage loading area, and this is our aura. I find that in the future, this link is very dangerous because we have to, when you drive, you have to like look at not only both sides, there are lots of traffic. It's like having a lot of four-way intersections. So I just find it very dangerous. So I just want to know whether or not this residential entrance can be relocated to Ambridge Way. Is it possible?
Okay, is that your submission?
Yes, I actually named the like written email is from me, so that's why I have all other 6 points over there.
Okay, so you want to put us back to full screen, please?
Okay.
Please put us back to full screen.
Yeah, done.
All right, the next speaker is Gurpreet Verdi. Is Gurpreet? All right,
I'm just speaking on behalf of supporting this project. I'm a registered nurse at Richmond Hospital, and I just want to speak in support of the project at 6851 and 6871 Elm Ridge Way, which is going to create around 321 units of new housing. And as someone who currently rents near the project on Elm Ridge Way.
please put on your video.
Sorry?
Please put on your video.
It doesn't work on my computer.
Go ahead.
Okay. And someone who rents currently near the project on Elm Ridge Way, I'm excited about this opportunity to potentially purchase a home of my own, since the housing market is very difficult to get into. And I do want to stop paying rent at some point and rather invest in my own sort of asset. Not only would this development provide me with a more stable housing situation, I'm also excited about the fact that it's going to be mixed use. So it's going to include retail shops and other amenities as well. This would also allow me to walk to nearby places rather than using my car as much and reducing emissions from my vehicle as well. I'm also thrilled that the Richmond Oval is right nearby as well. So it easily allows me to go work out there, play sports with my friends, things like that, and recreational programs. Overall, I believe that this developmental project is a win-win for the community, and it will provide a much needed housing options, especially for younger people, and support local businesses, as well as promote sustainability for the environment. And I do encourage the City Council to give it your full support. I would like to thank all of you for considering my thoughts on this project. That's all I have to say for today.
All right. Councillor Galanders, you have a question of this delegation? Go ahead.
Hi, Gurpreet. Thank you for coming out to speak. I just have a question. You're excited about this project as an opportunity to purchase. Is that specific to this project, or is there a difference between this one and any other one-bedroom condo in the neighborhood that's for sale?
More so, I'm excited about this one. I would like something that's going to happen so that I can save potentially to get into this project. That's why I'm interested in this one rather than going to something that's already built in the area.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Jeremy Grant. Is Jeremy Grant there? I don't see him. Simon Tan. Simon Tan?
Hello, I'm here.
All right, please turn on your video.
Hey, can someone help me with that?
Pardon me?
How would I do that?
You go to the bottom left where it says stop video and you undo it.
It's not letting me do that. Can I just speak in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Dear Mayor and Council, as an international student who has experienced the challenges of finding affordable housing in Richmond, I know firsthand how important it is to have access to affordable rental options near campus. That's why I'm excited to support this development project on Elm Ridge Way that is proposing to build 35 affordable rental units in our community. When I first arrived in Richmond to attend Kwantlen Polytechnic University, I faced a lot of stress and anxiety trying to find a place to live. It was a difficult and overwhelming process, and I can only imagine how much more challenging it must be for students who are not familiar with local rental market. There weren't very many options and everything was too expensive for me. That's why projects like this one are very important, because providing more affordable rental housing in the community, we can help make the transition to university life a little easier for international students like myself. And with the proposed development located within a short distance of the university, it will be a convenient and practical choice for students looking to live on their own. But the benefits of this project extend beyond just providing housing for international students. By building mixed-use buildings which combine residential units with commercial spaces like retail stores and offices, the development can help create a vibrant, walkable community that is welcoming to people of all ages and backgrounds. So I hope that you will support this project and all it has to offer. Thank you so much for letting me speak tonight.
All right, thank you very much. And that is the last one on my list. Now, is there anybody here who wants to speak to this item on the agenda? This development, all right, we'll go to. No, come on down. Come on down. Have a seat and introduce yourself. Is there anybody else who wants to speak to this? Okay, so you'll be the only speaker. Go ahead.
Is it okay? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
your name
So,
is?
Yeah, hello everyone, my name is Herbert Ryan. I'm current owner and also the resident of the 6951 Elm Bridgeway. And I do have a concern regarding this application. It's just because, you know, like my unit is facing all the west of Fraser River, and I do have a time, you know, enjoy with my family, you know, regarding the review of my unit, and also, you know, there may be shadows when, you know, this project is coming up. You know, kind of just block my current view from my unit as well. And also, there may be a, you know, mitigation on the economical level of my current unit as well. So because of the block of a view, but I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not fully totally against the construction. But my concern is just like, what's the distance the new building will keep from, you know, my current unit, and also. Since there will be an increasing of the traffic, and we are talking about, is there any public transit options for the new residents as well? And also, is there any like, you know, what's the contribution for the current community right there in the Oval area, right? So is there any parks, is there any recreation areas or any plazas will be built as well? Because we are talking about, you know, larger population densities right there. And we are not expanding all the, you know, roads and, you know, traffics there. There may be some like more traffic jams like that. So that may be some of my concerns right now. Yeah.
All right, we have a question from Councillor Day.
Hi, thank you so much for coming forward. As an owner who lives right there, that's really helpful information. So if we were to refer this back to staff and potentially have a workshop or something where, you know, the developer of this property could work with you and others in the area, would you be interested in?
Of course I do.
Yeah, and then when you brought up community amenities, you know, like with the last development, they were gonna get a church and a daycare. Do you see anything in this development that would benefit the community?
So first of all, I've heard that there will be a hotel like building up, right? So if they can just share their amenities and, you know, any recreation facilities there, then it would be helpful as well. Because, you know, even though Oval is right across the street, but we do have limited access for the, you know, amenities for free. I mean, we have to pay a price, right? And other than that, I found it's very difficult to find parks in that area as well, because as you can see, like two bridges just cutting off like two sides of the community, and also there are only parks on the river road sides. It's like a coast area or something. It's not a real park that we are talking about, and it's compared to other cities like Vancouver, there are more parks for sure, right? And other than that, yeah, as our Strata Council has brought up, you know, the traffic is a huge concern. The laneway is now very slowly digested the traffic, but you know, if it can be expanded, that's great. But also the block of view is not only my building, right? Like so all the west facing units will be blocked, like partially. So I mean, if there's a lot of shadows during the like daytime, you know, like I'm getting a lot of like shadows from, you know, new building. I don't know how tall the building is. So yeah, that could be a concern. I'm not saying this is not good, but yeah, it could be a concern, right?
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's ask a few questions before we get to a motion on this. To staff, a number of concerns have been raised regarding that laneway, whether there's a possibility of having cut-ins, the shared laneway, obviously, whether it could be widened, whether the garbage facility at Orba could be moved. What can you tell us about that?
Through your worship, I'd refer those questions to Mr. Lloyd B., our Director of Transportation.
All right, Lloyd?
Yeah, your worship, absolutely, that laneway will be widened. It'll actually have quite a wide driving surface at 7.5 meters. The lanes will each be 3.75 meters, which is quite generous when 2.75 is kind of a minimum. What I noticed in a bunch of the videos that we watched up here is that a number of the deliveries and the garbage trucks and stuff seem to be causing some difficulty. All of those operations are supposed to be happening on the Aura site. They're not supposed to be happening in the laneway. So I've been talking to our enforcement personnel to talk about doing more enforcement out there. As far as cutouts and things go, there aren't any existing on this particular site. All of their visitors and deliveries and stuff are supposed to be on their site, not on the roadway.
What about the possibility of relocating the garbage facilities at Aura?
Your worship, like I'm not positive, because Aura is already built, so I don't know if those can be moved, but what I am saying is that those actions are supposed to be happening on their site. They're not supposed to be happening in the laneway. The garbage truck should be on the Aura site in their loading bays, loading the garbage, not doing it in the laneway.
All right, so the Strata Corporation can let the city know if they need more enforcement as far as that goes?
Your worship, yes, they can.
Okay, now what about the last gentleman? He talked about the views, the distances between the various buildings. What can you tell us about that? Go ahead.
Yes, through your worship. I'm not sure if my mic is on. Through your worship, the design of the building, the form and orientation has been considered to attempt to maximize sunlight exposure. In terms of the, sorry, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, what about the views? What about the distance?
Sure, yeah.
Through the chair, in response to comments about shadowing and views, the assessment of shadows has been undertaken by the project and their consulting architect. The tower placement of the proposed development has been designed in such a manner to minimize shadowing on all neighboring developments. So that is in response to the shadowing. In response to views, also the tower placement and siting of the building has been developed to maintain as many existing views as possible. And in terms of tower spacing and separation, the city center area plan has specific guidelines establishing minimum tower separation both amongst and on the development site as well as to neighboring sites. This project complies with those guidelines.
And the last question I have is about amenities. What can you tell us about the amenities on this project?
Through your worship, in regards to on-site amenities, this development will be providing dedicated indoor amenities for the residential units. Those amenities will be available to all market rental and affordable housing units. In addition, dedicated outdoor amenity space will be provided on-site as well. Once again, that will be accessible to all market rent or market residential as well as affordable housing units.
All right, so we've got some more questions. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, I'd like to comment was made earlier, if I may, that the road would improve when the road is developed to the west. When would that take place, this new road to the west?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, the road will be implemented with this project.
It will be, how wide will that road be? So we won't need the laneway then?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, the lane will be one driveway access to the site. The new road on the west side of the site will include 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction, plus pedestrian infrastructure and on-street parking. There will also be driveway access to that new road.
Okay, I guess my concern on this is the inconvenience the people who live there now have been experiencing their quality of life, to be quite frank with you. If we have a chance to get it fixed, and get it better right now, then I think we should put it in. you mentioned as well to Mr. B, if they asked for cut-ins or whatever, I think they already mentioned 3 cut-ins of the current people, can we not take it under advisement and ask them where they would put it? They've identified it to us, so why do we have to wait?
Let's ask Mr. B that question, but isn't that partly answered because Aura is supposed to be doing all their vehicle traffic on site, and they're not doing it? But Mr. B, what do you have to say?
Yeah, Your Worship, that's correct. Like all of the visitor drop-off, all the visitor parking and everything is supposed to be on site at Aura. There are some other places in the city where we do have cutouts, but those are different places with different needs. And in this area, we do not have them. There's just there's some space restrictions within the area for other amenities that we are having. So the requirement has been that the pickup and drop-off and all the visitor parking be on site.
Okay, I think the videos were very revealing, and just because it supposedly complied with guidelines, and guidelines are just that, they're guidelines, it doesn't make it a good project on it. Was there any discussion through your staff increasing the low affordable market rental to get more units? I expressed a concern at the last meeting, and I thought we might be able to get some more here.
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, the proposal does comply with the city's affordable housing strategy based on time of application.
But, so the developer didn't offer anything?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. I know this area quite well, and I know that laneway has been a problem since Aura was actually built. That laneway is used as a shortcut that people want to avoid the light at River Road, and I think it's Hollybridge Way. And they shoot down that lane. I'm sure the people that live there are frustrated from that. The problem is that particular laneway. If we were to widen that laneway, no matter what you do, you're not going to get compliance of these garbage trucks going into it. It's too narrow for them to get into it. You saw that truck that tried to back in and out. The structure Aura will not allow that. You're always going to have that problem in that laneway unless we widened it sufficiently. So when in fact the project is built, that you don't have what is going on right now. Because if we keep what is going on right now with that new project, it's going to be even more chaos in that particular area. I think the easy fix, cutaways on Hollybridge Way or whatever is going to be difficult. That's in front of the Aura building. It's already built up. It's going to be very costly. I honestly think that we need to somehow work out some type of sufficient size of that laneway, which is going to accommodate the new development and at the same time ensure that we don't have the confusion that we have right now. Those are my comments, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Galanders.
Thank you. I have a question, because this traffic thing isn't coming up just right now at public hearing. We did hear from more people from the public this time around, but there's been correspondence back and forth and emails that we've been copied on for a long time now. And somebody, Yulia Liem, said that she's the traffic consultant for the project. I was just wondering, did staff ever respond to any of the concerns by working through the traffic consultant and correspond with the people who had the concerns? What's been done to address the concerns?
Go ahead.
Through your worship to Councillor Glanders, yes, staff has responded to many of the people that I don't know if we've responded to all of them, but we've responded to all the ones that we have received so far.
Yeah, I saw the responses, and it seems that the issue did not get solved by the responses, is that then people needed to sit down and come up with something that everybody can live with. We're at public hearing now, and it sounds like the people who live in Aura are desperate that we hear their concerns and do something about it. So I would definitely support referring this back to do a further traffic study and come up with something that everybody can live with. What I'm hearing from the general public, from people that live in the city center and people that live just east of city center, is that they're really frustrated with the amount of development that we've done in a short period of time, contributing to the traffic issues. And I think that there's too much parking, not enough bike parking, and I just don't think that that our roads are equipped to handle increased traffic. I think we need to look at it more. This is an area that hasn't been completely all done yet. I think that we have an opportunity to get this right.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. Well, I would agree with everything that Councillor Galander said. My concern is that if you actually look at PH 158, the gentleman who spoke earlier about shadowing, you can clearly see on that photo at the bottom that Aura is considerably smaller than this new development. And that tower to the left, which is going to be in the afternoon sun side, is going to, for sure, overshadow that building. We've seen the lane, and okay, you're not supposed to use the lane to get into Aura, but I mean, you have no choice. I mean, we've seen the video, you have to back in. We heard from Mr. Lee that there's 30,000 garage door openings a month. This isn't even a lane, this is a road. So what I would have liked to have seen, and this is my question of staff, is under public consultation on page 135, it states that city staff have also met with the property owner of the site to the immediate east, Aura, and provided general information about the development proposal during these discussions. And it goes further to say that if this goes to public hearing, then we can hear from the public. It's just too late. I think that the public and the owners, or the residents and owners and businesses of Aura, should have met with the development people from this development at the very, very beginning to work out some of the glitches prior to it coming to council. So given that there just hasn't been enough given yin and yang and give and take on this particular project, I think it should be referred back. There should be a workshop between the business owners, the residents, the new developers, and everyone who has a stake in this. Because if we do it right, this can be an asset. But the way it is right now, there is no city benefit. We're only getting, I think it's 35 lemur units. You know, at least with the last development, there was a daycare and a church and, you know, some green space. This really isn't giving anything to the city. And I don't think we should pass it today. I think we should send it back and take another kick at the can, because we can make this work. We just gotta spend more time with the stakeholders.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. You know, we are in a housing crisis, and there have been some valid points raised and concerns. One concern I have with some of the comments is that if we think that sending this back or referring it back, and perhaps that happens tonight, is the answer, I don't anticipate that we're actually going to make everybody happy at any point down the road. So that might be a little bit of an illusion to think that you're going to please everybody. Even a question like shadowing on a building that you're building a high-rise beside. You know, I heard an explanation, and I've read parts of it, that, you know, the best efforts have been made to minimize that. But the fact is, when you build a high-rise to the west of a building, there is going to be some shadowing. And there's going to be some loss of view as well. I mean, that's just a fact when you build a high-rise beside another building. When it comes to housing and affordability and lemur and affordable housing, I remember reading a survey about millennials, actually, and one of the delegates brought it up, and it's a good point. And I believe the number was 72% of millennials still have the aspiration of owning their own property. And that's what one of the delegates spoke to. And so it's not just about lemur, it's about all forms of housing, including market rental and including condominiums or things that can be purchased, because they will be still expensive, but more affordable than buying a single family home. So I do have a couple questions of staff, though. First of all, when it comes to amenities, we've heard a little bit about this tonight, and I remember talking about it planning. There is a voluntary contribution being made on this property, and I'd like staff to explain how much that is. And I'd like staff to comment on their recommendations on this application and to the developer, and why we're getting what was described at one time as the highest contribution that we've ever got, instead of having parks or that kind of thing in this area. Could staff comment on that?
Through your worship, in response to Councillor Hobbs, that's correct. There is a contribution being made in excess of $6 million. That is in response to the project taking advantage of the Village Center bonus, which does apply to this area. That $6 million contribution is a cash contribution based on estimated construction value of current rates and is intended to be used for future facilities, city facilities to be determined at a future date.
Thank you. And it is fair for me to characterize that contribution as being based at least significantly on the recommendations from staff in their conversations with the applicant. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. So one other question is, what's the rationale for a sidewalk in the lane? I mean, I can guess what it is, but typically in lanes, in most cities, we don't have sidewalks. We have a traffic congestion problem here, which if you look at areas that have a lot of high rises, you're going to have traffic congestion almost in every lane, especially where there's multiple high rises. You can look in downtown Vancouver as an example. I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm just saying it seems to be a reality of life when you have multiple high rises. So in this lane, we're widening it, but we are taking a portion of what we're widening for a sidewalk. And is it going to be the standard operating procedure for us in these kind of areas to put, to take part of the lane up, which is very congested, and to put a sidewalk in? And what's the rationale for that? Because you're building a street to the west, there's Holly Bridge, there are sidewalks around the complexes. So are we going to be building sidewalks in our laneways in Richmond?
Through your worship, to Councillor Hobbs, I think it's very situational and it depends where you are. Like in this case, the walkability is enhanced by having a sidewalk in the laneway. Otherwise, you would have to, if you were trying to go to the Elm Bridge, say from the Oval, you'd have to actually walk quite a ways out of your way then, and it really seems appropriate to have a sidewalk through this laneway.
Well, just a comment, and maybe it can be taken into consideration, is people can still walk in laneways, and I know you have to be careful with vehicles and traffics and big trucks and things like that, but I've walked in many laneways, so if we widen that and don't actually put a physical sidewalk in, there's probably still room for people and vehicles to maneuver, but that's just a thought. With the road that's being built on the west side of the development, so the new development, if it's approved, will have access through the existing lane that we're all talking about, and it will have access through the new road being built to the west. Is there any way to provide kind of a figure, a proportion, a percentage of the volume of traffic that will access the new development through the new road on the west versus the lane? Is it somehow divided, or is it going to be equal access? Or is one access point going to be for some kind of traffic and another one for commercial traffic, for instance? Do we know that yet?
Through your worship, in response to Councillor Hobbs, the configuration of the parkade enables access to either the lane or the access to the new West Road to be able to gain access from any parts of the parkade. Neither of those accesses, whether they be to the lane or to the new West Road, are dedicated or allocated to a particular user or group of users.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Rao.
I expressed my concern about traffic when this was being discussed on council. I think we have to bear in mind that this is a laneway, it's not a standard road. And in terms of the volume of traffic, this is comparable to a major road. So I think there are concerns about safety, not to mention the inconvenience to the residents on Aura. And I think the presentation tonight only reinforced my observation and my concern. I point out that, with the hotel being in that location, it will only add more traffic, and the situation would even be worse. I think the hotel or the entrance of the hotel is at the wrong place. So I would like to see that this be referred back and for further workout on this arrangement of traffic. And I don't know if, this laneway can actually become a standard road, if the developer is willing to sacrifice some of the land and make this into a road so that, it can be a proper connector between the two River Road and Ambridge Way, so that I think that would be much better and safer, and it can be easier to regulate. I understand that there's a enforcement problem here right now, but with the setup like this right now, I don't think much improvement can be achieved unless this is being made into a proper standardized road.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I followed this at the Planning Committee meeting, and I was opposed to it at Council, and I have heard tonight that there's some appetite for referring it back, and I will be supportive of that. Part of the reason for that is, again, the attempt to get the grandfather clause in, where you only have to build 10% lemur, and not the new standard, the 15%, which is with today's need as opposed to the previous rendition of it. I also have some experience driving moving trucks. I did that for a few years. And I know the approach. If there's not enough room to get in there, you just park and you unload or load and you take up the route that the residents are needing to access. It's not the right thing to do, but it's what happens. And if you try and go anywhere else around the Aura development or any other site like this, you'll find that you probably can't do it other places, but here you're kind of hidden and you're in a lane, you're not seen, and it happens. The other aspect that was highlighted in the videos there was that just the sheer volume. And I know people who, when the parking lot was free, people who'd play at the Olympic Oval or go to things at the Oval, they would park in that lot as well. But since it's been charged, I think a lot of those people are now just going back and paying at the Oval. So I'm not sure if there's been any improvement, anything noticeable, but there has been a likely change in some of the users of that lane and parking space. Again, I did note that this isn't any sustainability leadership type project. It really is just following the lower scale of going with the Energy Step Code 2. Thankfully, it will be hooked up to a future district energy, which is a positive, but also at the same time, we're hooking up all these new units with natural gas, and I think that's not the way to go, especially when we're trying to make some improvements when it comes to emissions, and I don't think it'll be necessary in a few years from now. But anyway, again, even more reason why we could ask for a referral and get some further improvements and further amenities. I know there was a need for non-profit sector facilities, and as they struggle to afford rent in this area. And the last point I'll make is, well, actually two more points. The hotel that was pointed out in the scene there, where maybe 4 vehicles can go into that thing, and if the front one is still waiting at the front desk, everyone's trapped behind, and you're gonna have a lineup of people or other vehicles trying to get into this area. And then the last point again is I really hope we can get more from this development, because as it stands before us, only 6% of all the units in this development will be 2 or 3 bedroom rentals, and that's definitely not enough to satisfy the rising demand. Thanks.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. I'm hearing a number of issues on this, and I hear that the strata is having some issues with the parking. And is it true then, it's a question of staff then, if they did want cutouts there's a process in which they could apply for cutouts along the edges of their property that aren't having to do with this alley, is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, they could certainly approach staff and we could have a look at it.
Okay, so normally you don't go to somebody else's public hearing to discuss your cutouts, you could just, there's a process to go through that. Okay, and then it sounds like there's some issues with deliveries and that sort of thing, and those are within tenants within the same building, so a lot of that's its own, the operations within its own building that need to be addressed. Now, if the new development didn't get access to this lane, would they then have to increase the width of this lane at all? So if they were building entirely facing the other direction, they wouldn't have to add any width to this lane, is that correct?
To your worship to Councillor Liu, I don't see a reason to do so at this point in time. If we weren't adding any other usage to this lane from that property, it'd be difficult to ask for that from this property under development.
Okay, and so, and the reason that the hotel is on this side of it is because typically the hotels actually have less car traffic. So they'll have someone come in and drop off, but the taxi stops, dumps them off and carries on. Or they come in those shuttle buses and they bring a bunch of people, the bus comes and then the bus takes off. So there's not typically a ton of cars stopping to park, or they get valeted and off they go. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, I can't say exactly what's going to happen with the hotel in that way, but I'm certain that it's up to how the hotel is operated, and if they are operating in a way that impedes traffic, it would be up to us to enforce that.
Okay, but they have a parkade anyway for people to park and then check in if that's the alternate way to make things happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor, yes, they have parking for the hotel in their parkade.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right, I'll take a motion. It sounds like people want to refer this back for more review, but whatever. Someone make a motion? Sorry. You're moving? So you're moving refer, okay. Okay, I think we've had our discussion on that. So that's moved and seconded. The one thing I want to point out, as part of this referral, we don't expect a workshop with everybody involved. I just don't think the process can work if we do that. Not to say others shouldn't be consulted, but it's, as I think Councillor Hobbs said, you're not going to please everybody, and so you need to recognize that. Councillor McNulty.
I would, if it's going to be referred, do we have a timeline when it can be brought back?
Well,
A couple of months?
I don't know. What would the expectation be? Can you bring it back in a couple of months?
Through your worship, it'd be very difficult for staff to provide any timeline in terms of referral. I'm hearing the primary purpose of referral is to review traffic. That could be addressed through a number of options. We would also need to come back through planning committee. I would suggest this is 3 to 4 months minimum.
All right. Councillor Day.
I think that if you don't want to call it a workshop, you could call it a robust community consultation. When the gardens at Number 5 Road in Steveston was built, they reached out to the neighborhood, had workshops, and asked the people what they wanted to see. Things like dentist's office, doctor's offices, park space.
That isn't the issue here.
My point is that if we had a robust communication with the people in Aura and those others around there, we could come up with a really great plan, which is what we did at the gardens. It was very successful. So I don't think this thing is dead. I think it can be reworked.
It can definitely be reworked. Councillor Hobbs.
Can I just, on the referral, can I have a question of staff? Is the traffic issue something that has to be done with a referral, or is that something that can be looked at in the process of the development ongoing?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, in terms of options that have been discussed tonight, we've talked from anything from widening of the lane to removing access to the lane. Those are material terms to the rezoning because they do deal with land dedications and statutory rights of way. It would be very difficult for us to deal with those through a development permit.
Okay.
All right, Councillor Galanders, on the referral.
On the referral, thank you, Your Worship. I support a referral about the traffic, as we've all discussed. I don't think there's any,
I think we're kind of
Yeah.
repeating, aren't we?
okay, sure.
Counselor Heed.
Thank you, Mayor. I just need some clarification here, because I don't want to stall this particular project. I think it's something that, you know, you know, is needed in that particular area. I think it's something that'll benefit that particular area. If we're voting to refer it, Mayor, are we opening up this whole gambit again? I'm just concerned about the laneway.
Well, you heard staff say, what I heard was about transportation, the laneway, the cutouts, the, you know, all the various issues that were right in that particular area. Staff didn't say, I heard that you want the, you know, the buildings reconfigured and, you know, all the parts moved. So I think that that will be the thrust of it and it'll come back.
And then as far as the grandfathering goes, Mayor, what happens with the lemur?
Grandfathering, Mr. Craig?
Through your worship, the primary terms of grandfathering with respect to affordable housing have been met. The requirement was that first reading be granted by November 15th. This bylaw does have first reading. If there was a desire to revisit the affordable housing provision, we would require direction to do so.
All right. So, grandfather. All right. So on referral, all those in favor? Any opposed? Just a minute, you're opposed. Okay, so it's carried with Councilors Lou, Hobbs, Heed opposed. All right, the next one, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Worship. Item number 4 is Richmond rezoning bylaw 8500, amendment bylaw 10425, RZ 22009258. Location is 10851 and 10871 Bird Road. The applicant is Rick Bowl. Purpose is to rezone the subject property from single detached RS1E to single detached RS2B to permit the creation of 2 single-family lots. First reading is November 28th, 2022.
All right, is the applicant here? Actually, I think he's on Zoom, isn't he?
Online.
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Now, did you wish to make a presentation or just await questions?
Just to wait questions.
All right, any written submissions?
None, Your Worship.
All right, anybody wishing to speak to us on this item on the agenda? All right. Moved and seconded. Councilor Heed, I think that was from the last one. Councilor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am new to council, and I've spoken about rezoning duplexes into single-family houses before as a member of the public. And I do understand that many years ago, this council changed the rules about duplexes because the duplexes that were getting built were large, almost separate, completely separate dwellings with one small shared wall. So council said, well, this is just silly, let's just let them split it into 2 lots. I did hear that explanation. However, when you look at the affordability piece, as long as there's that one shared wall, duplexes are much better than a single family house. So I understand that this is an area that is further to the east and doesn't have transit and is not looking to be densified. But when we already have a duplex, I am going to generally be opposed to splitting them into single-family homes. And in this case in particular, just because the lot is quite narrow, so what we're getting when we split it into 2 lots is a really long, narrow, do you have that page number? There's a diagram of it, of where the trees that we're gonna lose at the back. I think it's, if you look at PH 204, like 197 to 204, it's such a narrow lot that when you split it into 2, in order to accommodate those large garages that we do in the front in our Richmond houses, the houses are so far set back, which is why they have to remove the trees at the back of the property. Whereas if it was replaced with a newer duplex, it wouldn't take up such a large footprint to the back. So I am opposed to this policy that we have. I do hope that we'll change it when we go through the OCP. And I'm going to vote not in support of this.
Councilor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too will, as I spoke at planning and at council on this one, not be in support of this development, which is following a similar kind of routine that we're seeing, where a certain number of bylaw trees are being removed according to the tree protection bylaw. They're required to plant a certain number in, but there's only room for a smaller number than that. I think there clearly is enough room to put in trees, or just don't take out as many. And if that means that you can't build as large of a house that the maximum allows for, then so be it. This is along a green trail that runs the back of this property, and rather than putting fill right up to the property line on the back, which is likely what's going to happen here, and impact neighboring areas, and then we'll just see more developments asking to do the same. When we have tree protection bylaw, it's there for a reason, and to just take cash in lieu will never get us the increasing tree canopy when we're forever filling and not allowing the natural soils to remain. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting it. Thanks.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. Yes, I had a question regarding the trees that was just brought up. PH 197 shows the two lots with the trees in question at the back. And if we were to allow maybe a slight variance between the trees and the buildings, would it be possible to save those green trees? Because, I mean, they are pretty significant.
Through your worship, the councillor Day, the trees that are shown on page PH 197 are actually within an existing right-of-way. They are also outside of the building envelope. The only tree that was affected by the building envelope is located on lot 1. All others are already located in an SRW and are of poor, deemed to be of poor quality and not suitable for retention.
So my question is, like, the trees are there now and they're on the right-of-way, but because you're building 2 new houses, they're no longer allowed to be there. Is that right?
Well, they're of poor quality, so we don't believe that they are worth retaining on site. When we do receive a rezoning application, we do evaluate all of the environmental assets on site. These were not deemed worthy to be able to be kept at this point in time. As a result, we are getting 12 replacement trees, 8 of which are being planted across both lots, so 4 on each new lot.
And then our tree law protects trees, but it doesn't protect bushes, right? Like if you have, a nice round laurel bush or something like that, they're not covered. And given that there is a setback and there is a right-of-way, would it be possible to require not trees, but some sort of significant bush that would grow and build a hedge, but wouldn't be very tall?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, you're correct in that the tree bylaw only deals with trees and not shrubbery or other bushes. Certainly in other larger scale development applications, you do see a more comprehensive landscape plan that's required for those types of developments. In this case, we did assess just the trees on the property, and only the trees were what were provided in terms of tree compensation.
Right.
Well, the only redeeming feature of this development in my mind is the 2 two-bedroom suites. The rest of it is just cookie cutter. It's just another big, huge 2 buildings that's gonna be super crowded, but I guess that's what we're building these days.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. What we're building these days is a variety of different things. I will be supporting this application. When it comes to single-family homes, it's extremely expensive for even a moderately well-employed person to build a home, and it's got nothing but more expensive. So the tree issue is interesting. I think, as we've talked about with dogs and dog parks, we all love dogs. Well, I think we all love trees too. But when it comes to single-family lots, most people that are building find it so expensive, and most people aren't multimillionaires, that they want to maximize the size of the dwelling that's being put on the house. And we have fairly robust bylaws that both protect trees and limit the size of houses and provide setbacks, and I find those actually quite good, the changes that were made in recent history. So in this case, when we talk about removing some trees that are described in some cases as not being that healthy anyway, I think that's something that we have to recognize that a builder or an ordinary person building a home is going to want to do if the tree is in the footprint of where the house would go on a lot in order for them to build the house that they're allowed to build on that lot. I don't think people should be afraid to talk about that. It's something that everybody who is building is going to want to do because there's economic issues here that when you build a house, you're going to want to maximize what you can do on that lot, not just for yourself and for your family, but even if you are selling it down the road sometime. But many people aren't selling it. Many people are building it to move into. So we have a bylaw that protects trees where they're able to be protected. It also provides for replanting trees at a very good ratio. And I think even Harold Steves, I've heard him say you can replant trees, and that's good. So the issue of the trees being removed isn't one that would compel me not to approve this. And I think we have to keep in mind that trees will be removed when we're building multifamily units or even single-family homes because sometimes the trees weren't planted in the most strategic spot. I planted them as a kid myself, and so was my wife, and they were really close to the house. So when you enlarge a house from an old 50-year-old bungalow to something that's going to take up more of the footprint on the lot that we provide for in our bylaws, sometimes the tree will be removed. And so I'll be supporting this.
All right, I think that's all the speakers then. So let's go to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried with Councillors Wolf and Galanders opposed. The next one, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item number 5 is proposed amendment to single-family lot size policy 5442, sections 19 and 20, block 4, North Range 6 West, and Richmond zoning bylaw 8500 amendment bylaw 10428, RZ 21926-304. Part A is proposed, Part A purpose is to amend single-family lot size policy 5442, sections 19-4-6 and 20-4-6 to exclude 8220 Gilbert Road. And Part B, location is 8220 Gilbert Road. The applicant is Rick Bowl. And the purpose is to rezone the subject property from the single detached RS1E zone to the Artilo Road 2-unit dwellings RDA zone to permit the property to be subdivided to create 2 lots, each to contain a front to back duplex with shared vehicle access from Gilbert Road. First reading was November 28th, 2022.
Okay, so again, the applicant is here.
Yes.
Okay, do you want to make any presentation or just await questions?
No. No presentation.
Okay, any written submissions?
None, Your Worship.
Okay, anybody wishing to speak to us on this item on the agenda? Okay, I'll ask for action. Moved and seconded. Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one question of staff. Is a front to back duplex, are they like other duplexes in that it's freehold? Like you own the piece of grass in front of you and behind you versus a townhouse, which is strata?
Through your worship to Councillor Galanders, the exact tenure would be at the discretion of the developer. Generally speaking, a duplex is a strata development. Much like a townhouse, there's just smaller number of units involved.
Okay, thank you. And so, my initial thoughts on this and my thoughts now are that I'm not opposed to this. I know that in this area, a lot of the single-family neighborhoods in this area are very opposed to densification, and there's been some sort of speculative kind of activity waiting for us to rezone the whole thing to townhouses or whatnot, and people are concerned with that. I like this, taking one property and turning it into 4 versus doing a lot assembly where the houses end up getting rented for years and then everybody gets displaced and the whole thing gets leveled. I think that this creating the duplexes one lot at a time is is it maybe a better way to do things? I mean, I think down the road, we're gonna look to do better, but being left with some duplexes in neighborhoods, I think is a step forward as far as single-family neighborhoods, and I think it's one type of gentle density that is, I don't know, appealing, so I'm in support of it.
Councillor Wolf.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just gonna ask a question, then a couple of comments. To staff, did the residents of Mirabel Court get notification? I know we recently made changes where there's like a second wave of notification, and at planning, I remember there was a number of residents who expressed concern. None are here tonight, or wrote in again. So could staff just was that that change that council made recently, did that impact notification for tonight?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Wolf. The recent changes to notification increasing the radius to 100 meters was in effect, as well as notification directly to all members of or all properties covered under the lot size policy area. So there's sort of 2 layers of map that were notified.
Great, thank you. And I just want to point out, if approved as stated, then every single tree on every property that's been discussed tonight will be removed from all the developments. So we've just been, well, I guess one that was being referred back. I guess those ones aren't necessarily chopped yet, but and the one that is on this property, I do understand that it is in very poor condition. I think it's one of the only ones that we heard today is that poor. But what is still significant about this property, which you can look at any of the maps that show it, is not just the size of the parcel, but the sheer permeable surface ratio to non-permeable surface. And I'm not saying that we have to save every permeable surface, but when this development goes in, that's being proposed here, none of the existing soil will likely be there. All the pavement and structures that they'll be using will likely be fully non-permeable. And a little bit of grass patches that they do have, if they're not artificial turf, will be buried sand with a tiny layer of soil. So we're not doing much in the way of climate leadership or working with developers who can bring about the kinds of changes that we need. Instead, we're just paving over what we got. So with that, I'm going to wait to hear what the next speaker has. I haven't decided yet here.
Councillor Day, help us out.
So I've been to this lot. I actually talked to some of everybody that lived there, and very helpful people. Just 2 doors to the south of this lot is a big house, and it's for sale. So it's not unimaginable that a land assembly could happen there, especially given that the Salvation Army building is a very large lot, just 2 doors down, 3 doors down. So I'm not a fan of these back front duplexes, which have, and if you look at the drawing on page 241, a vehicular courtyard. Can you imagine living in a place where you've got 2 cars and the other 3 houses have got 2 cars, there's 1 visitor parking, and everybody has to get in and out to the vehicular courtyard? I think if we're going to have this kind of density, we could build more smaller units and probably take up no more square footage. So they're not going to be all that affordable, and I'm just not in favor of them. I think that we could do better, especially on these large lots that are very hard to find in Richmond. So I won't be supporting it.
All right, we're going to call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried with Councillors Day and Wolf opposed. All right, that brings us to, let's see, to number 6.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. Official Community Plan Bylaw 7100 Amendment Bylaws 10371 and 10392, and Richmond Zoning Bylaw 8500 Amendment Bylaws 10372, 10394, and 10393. The locations are 3540, 3800, 3866, 3880, and 3900 Bayview Street, and 12551 Number 1 Road. The applicant is City of Richmond, and the purpose of the OCP Amendment Bylaw 10371 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 10372 is to amend the land use policies in the Stevenson Village Riverfront area contained in Section 2.4 of the official community plan to no longer permit residential uses and amend the Stevenson Commercial CS2 Light Industrial IL and Stevenson Commercial and Pub ZMU 10 zoning districts on a site-specific basis to not permit residential and related land uses for lots located on the south side of Bayview Street between 3rd Avenue and Number 1 Road. And the purpose of zoning amendment bylaw 10394 is to amend the Stevenson Commercial CS2 Light Industrial IL and Stevenson Commercial and Pub ZMU 10 zoning districts on a site-specific basis to not permit certain uses for lots located on the south side of Bayview Street between 3rd Avenue and Number 1 Road. And the purpose of OCP Amendment Bylaw 10392 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 10393 is to amend the land use policies in the Stevenson Village Riverfront area contained in Section 2.4 of the official community plan to reduce the permitted heights of buildings to 9 meters and amend the light industrial IL zoning district to implement a 9-meter maximum building height on a site-specific basis at 3540 and 3880 Bayview Street and 12551 Number 1 Road. First reading was November 28th, 2022.
Okay, so the applicant is the City of Richmond. Mr. Craig, do you or somebody else want?
Nothing
Mr. Hopkins?
further, nothing further to add. Happy to answer any questions. We could provide a summary of the bylaws if you wish.
Okay, I think we've been there. We've been through them a couple times. All right, written submissions.
Your Worship, we received a submission from Ms. Linda Barnes opposing the proposal, and we received a resubmission from Mr. Evan Dunphy expressing concerns about the removal of residential uses.
Okay, so we'll ask for submissions from people here. Somebody, okay, Mr. Dunphy, we'll start with you. Who wants to be next? Oh, sorry, Mr. Dunphy, hang on a sec. I've got a list here. We got to exhaust the list first. Okay, so the first speaker on the list is Lawrence Sly, who I think is here. There he is, with his festive sweater on. Come on forward, sir. Tell us what's on your mind. Would you rather stand?
Oh, my leg's asleep.
Oh, okay.
Not that I'm being bored here, it's just.
Not that the rest of you is.
Okay, Lawrence Sly, 11911 3rd Avenue, Stevenson, BC. I come here opposing what council's trying to do with the waterfront property in Stevenson. I'll go back to when Chockow and Harold Steves introduced me to the gentleman that wanted to buy the property in 2016 or 17 when they purchased it. They were Chinese and spoke no English. So I lined Danny Leung to come to a meeting at the Gulf of Georgia County boardroom. I believe Chalk was there along with Harold, Dave Semple, myself, and I believe Linda Barnes. And we talked about the property and its uses. Both Steves and Chockow had talked about the, sorry. My voice doesn't carry, I apologize for that. So there was a number of community people at that meeting, and we wanted to find out what their interests were and what they were gonna possibly build. At that time, it was allowed to do residential. They talked about, I brought Danny Leung in to do translation, which was a mistake because Danny does not speak Mandarin, but Cantonese, so Danny sat and read the paper while we discussed for the next couple hours. At one point during the conversation, I asked what their intent was, and the comeback was that they wanted to build a Playboy Club. I said, that's not gonna work in Stevenson. And a day later, I got contacted by, I believe, Chalk, that they had misinterpreted what was saying, and it was not a Playboy club, but a yacht club, which was a relief because that's more in fitting with the marine use of Steveston. I believe that Steveston does need residential. If you look at the Save-On Foods with the residential above it, and the Sharon Zethy building along Chatham Street with residential above it, an award-winning building, by the way, by an architect who is here tonight, Ken Chow, and he worked in aspects of historic Steveston in that building. I also lined up Ken Chow to meet with these developers to work on a design for the Steveston waterfront property. It was brought to the Steveston 2020 group not once but twice, that a number of councilors have gone to our 2020 meetings. We have 20 to 30 community organizations that meet on a bi-monthly basis discussing issues in Steveston. I believe that the large contingent of Steveston would love to see the waterfront property with residential use, and I think this should be deferred to a further meeting for the community to get more involved. I've lived in the community over 50 years, volunteered over 50 years, and I've just heard of this in the last couple of weeks. I heard wanting to rezone this properties. Any questions?
Okay, no, we don't have any questions. Thanks very much. The next speaker on the list is Brian Veljasic, who is on Zoom. I see you there, sir.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. Back again with the same story. Hopefully I can convince you guys to reconsider your decision on the residential. I'm Brian Veljasic. I'm the leased property at 3900 Bayview Street. I've been a commercial fisherman out of Steveston Harbor for the last 40 years. I've lived in the Steveston Waves building for the last 12 years. I bought 3900 Bayview property because it was zoned CS2 for mixed residential and commercial use. My intention was to build a residential unit on the second level above the Coves Restaurant. This is my dream, to retire in Steveston Village overlooking the Fraser River, where my entire family fish commercial fishing out of Steveston Village. The main mandate of Steveston Harbor is to preserve the commercial fishing village. I do not think there is another fishing family that has committed more of their life to Steveston fishing community than mine. Approximately 2 years ago, I submitted a simple text amendment zoning application to the city. I only wanted to change the zoning from multiple residential to only one residential unit. Our plan is to build and expand on the current second floor above Cove, like I said. We do not plan to exceed the current height of the existing building that we already have. We do not plan to expand on an existing building's footprint. We do not plan to alter the existing two public water accesses. We plan to enhance the current accesses only with updated landscaping. Over the last 2 to 3 years, we have been working with the City of Richmond. Our architect has been fine-tuning the plans under the direction of the city. The city has required us to hire multiple consultants, geotechs, traffic consultants, parking consultants, and surveyors, all at great expense to us. A few months ago, a couple councilors surprised everyone by asking to stop any active applicants and for planning to prepare to remove residential on the south side of Bayview Street. We'll reimburse my expenses that we were out of. The city planning led us to believe that we can develop a single residential unit over in the second level, as our current zoning is permitting. I believe my application is being caught in the crosshairs of a much larger zoning application, 3880 Bayview Street, the Imperial Oil site. This application is greatly different than mine. They want 3 stories. They want underground parking. They're developing for profit. They have limited public water access. My application would not do any of these. We want to build a single residence for myself to retire in. I believe the city wants to crush this application and they feel they must take me down with them. All this is unfair. My property is already zoned for residential. That Imperial Oil site is zoned industrial, not residential. Why would the city want to remove residential mixed use from the village? How would my single unit harm Steveston? A working, living community brings a vibrant atmosphere that Steveston is known for. This is why last year, Steveston was voted the most desirable place to live in BC. I ask council to please reconsider and allow me to build my retirement home. Please don't devalue my property. Please don't remove my current rezoning, my current residential zoning. And please help me with my current CS2 zoning and build my dream home. Thank you.
All right. I have some speakers. Is that questions of this delegation? Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Question to the delegate. Thank you for coming forward and thank you for your comments. It occurs to me that you are applying for a single residential unit and you talked about living with your mother or something. Now, was there a reason you're only applying for a single residential unit? I understood perhaps there was something to do with some parking requirements or something, even though you have secured parking, although not on the exact same site. Is that correct?
Yes, you're right. It all came down to parking.
Okay.
Originally, I wanted to build 4 units up there, and then with 4 units, I believe I would have had to have 8 parking stalls. For the residential, the city told me the residential purposes, I had to have those 8 parking stalls on the actual property. They couldn't be across the street or something. And within that property, there is presently there is 4 parking stalls on that property. So we started backing up. So only 4 stalls. Then we said, oh, let's try to get 2 units up there. That wasn't acceptable. Eventually, the city told me that we could do 1 unit. We could do 1 parking stall that allowed you to have just only 1 unit up there. So I said, sure, we're going to compromise down to that, because that basically is my main plan is to just buy a place for myself, build a place for myself. So it came down to parking, what we could park on the property.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Brian, for coming out to speak.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hi. When you were originally going to build the 4 units, I'm just curious, what was your intention for those units?
I was going to rent them out.
You were going to rent them out?
Oh, well, except for the 1. I was going to live in 1 and rent the other ones out.
Yeah, because, you know, the 1 unit that you applied to build, we know is around over 5,000 square feet. And you had said that you wanted to live there and age in place and have caregivers or move your parents in. But originally, you were okay with building 4 units, only keeping 1 for yourself. So that just doesn't completely line up for me, as far as what your intentions were. But regardless, I do hear what you're saying.
All right. Councillor Hobbs, you have a question?
Yeah, it was kind of asked, but thank you, and through the chair. But just to clarify and maybe reemphasize the point that the original intention of building more than 1 apartment, you've changed it to 1, which sounds quite large, I think, for people when they read the report. But just to clarify, that was done essentially through working with the city and lining it up with the requirements for traffic and parking in that on the site, right?
Yeah, that's right. And we drew up plans with 4 units and submitted them to the city, and worked back and forth with them, and couldn't make them happy about the parking situation. You know, if I were to build the same square footage of building on that property now, that we would only need 33% less parking than we have supplied already. So I was asking to try to get some relaxation in that, but I didn't get any headway. And little by little, city, we worked back, and they beat me up, and I was down to just 1 unit.
All right, Councillor Day.
Thank you very much for coming forward. Could you tell me, when does your lease expire on this land?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't hold me to it, but I'm going to think it's probably another 25 years, 20 something like that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. So, we'll now go to Mr. Dunphy.
My voice does travel, so I'm just gonna put that back for all of our sakes. Oh. If I have this here, you can still see me. Yeah, okay, perfect. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Happy holidays to everyone who celebrates. So I've previously submitted extensive comments. Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Evan Dunphy. I live at 6655 Linus Lane. So I've previously submitted extensive comments on this ahead of the November 28th council meeting, and were recirculated tonight. So I'm hoping all that was received and read, and I won't fully reiterate all my points of opposition to this motion, but I do want to focus on a few key ones. So over the last year, the majority of this council has made it very clear that in their opinions, the OCP, including area plans, aren't things that can be easily changed without any consultation. For example, there were several discussions around 4-story apartments being better suited than proposed townhomes, and each time council voted against that idea under the guise that the OCP isn't to be adjusted on a whim. With that in mind, I would like to read a little excerpt from the Steveston Area Plan that was adopted in 2009, approved by a couple of senior councillors here tonight, actually. So this is from page 9-34 of the Steveston Area Plan. It's the Steveston Village riverfront. Once a veritable wall of cannery structures defining the water's edge, the riverfront uplands have become a collection of gravel parking lots, fuel facilities, trailers, moorage access, visitor attractions, and derelict industrial buildings. The boardwalk and wharves that were once a focus for fishing activity and community interaction are now mostly gone or inaccessible. New development should seek to reanimate the riverfront by integrating new and revitalized maritime-oriented industries and activities within an unconventional, pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use environment. It goes on to say that new development should be consistent with the area's historic cannery buildings. Massing should reflect the historic precedent of large buildings, and continues on that it should provide pedestrian access to a continuous riverfront walkway. So that was what the area plan called for in 2009 when it was approved. Large cannery-style mixed-use buildings that follow the Sakamoto design guidelines and accommodate a continuous waterfront pathway for the public to use. This plan underwent significant consultation with stakeholders in the public, and then in 2017, it underwent an update that again sought significant public feedback and tinkered with a few things, and ultimately left the ethos of the original plan. That is to say, large cannery-style mixed-use commercial and residential buildings that revitalize the riverfront while paying homage to the history of the area. Looking at the questions that were asked in the 2017 consultation, they were quite clear. The pictures used showed what it would look like if the area was fully built out with large-style buildings taking up those large lots. And overwhelmingly, the information that came back from that consultation was a favoring of that plan being built out. At no point during the council process in 2017 did anyone present to council against the idea of large cannery-style buildings, nor has anyone presented or written to council in this process up until this time. I can't speak for anyone speaking after me, but up until this time, nothing has been received that's public knowledge against the intentions of the original plan. In fact, many of you voted for changing the plan at council. Many of you that voted for changing the plan here a couple weeks ago, earlier this or last month, actually voted for the plan in 2017. So what has changed since then? Mixed-use buildings are the gold standard of vibrant, successful urbanism and design. They revitalize and enliven an area, creating new businesses and new customers to help existing businesses succeed. And they allow for more walkable cities, which is something that the city has determined is important to them. The Steveston Area Plan, as it currently exists for this small section, is good urbanism. It seeks to harken back to the heritage and history of the area. And we've seen just earlier tonight that council cares a great deal about heritage. So why not here? Our OCP is clear that we want to improve residents' ability to work, live, and play in the same area. And that's only possible with mixed-use development. The existing plan will contribute greatly to the vibrancy of Steveston, which is currently in tough as its population declines and businesses struggle, as you heard at council last month. And this leads me to my final point. We need more homes in Richmond. We are, after all, in a housing crisis. Fully built out, this small patch of land won't provide for many homes, maybe a couple of dozen max, and they're probably decades down the pipeline. But if you're to vote tonight to completely obliterate the existing area plan without any consultation and due process, you are sending a strong message to home providers in Richmond that they have no reason to be confident in our OCP. In an already risky environment, without confidence in the OCP, home providers will simply look to other places than Richmond to invest and build homes. It'll become harder for us to meet our housing needs down the line because developers and home builders just simply won't have the trust that they can believe what our OCP says. The OCP needs to be rigorous, needs to be consistent, and needs to be trustworthy. Otherwise, what is it good for? With a large OCP update already ongoing, I'm urging this council to vote against changing the OCP in the Steveston Area Plan tonight without consultation, and instead let the Steveston Area Plan form part of the larger OCP update that is forthcoming. Voting to change this plan is a vote against having confidence in our OCP, against revitalizing Steveston, against good urbanism principles of mixed-use development, and against hearkening back to the heritage of the waterfront, and against housing. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a question from Councillor Galanders.
Hi, Evan, thanks for coming out. Mr. Dunphy, through your worship. I have a question about when you were reading the 2009 area plan, it said mixed use, mixed use, mixed use. And then I think you threw in mixed use as in commercial residential. Did it actually say commercial residential in that document? Because my understanding is that mixed use can mean a mix of industrial, commercial, retail, and office. It doesn't have to mean it meant residential.
For sure. So in the development section of the area plan, it does mention the residential uses in there.
And the same document, the 2009 document?
Yeah. I don't have it would take me a while to pull up the exact reference, but I can try and do that while further speakers are.
That's okay. I was just curious. I can look it up too, but thank you very much for clarifying.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Okay, the next speaker, Mr. Westermark, go ahead. And then we'll go to this gentleman here.
Good evening. I'm Dana Westermark. I live at 507 6168 London Road. And I spoke at the council meeting 3 weeks ago, I guess it is, regarding this proposed change to the bylaw, and expressed my concerns with that. I want to reiterate the point that the Steveston Conservation Strategy had a very clear understanding of what should happen along this waterfront. Large buildings that were reflective of the cannery buildings, that were reflective of the kind of street wall of major structures along the waterfront, which were the industrial core and were the foundation of that community. To strip this back from the original 20-meter intent to 12 meters, now to 9 meters, is just completely the wrong direction for what should be happening along that waterfront. Those smaller buildings are not representative of what happened along the waterfront. They're more representative of what happened in the village itself. And the waterfront was the big buildings. Moncton and the numbered streets, First, Second, and Third Avenue, were smaller buildings, hotels and the like. But, you know, the waterfront buildings were the massive structures. So to be putting small buildings out on the waterfront is completely contrary to the historical context of this area. On top of which, you know, the point was raised at the council meeting that the addition of a few residential units in this location isn't going to change the composition of Steveston and isn't going to save the businesses there. Well, it's not. That's absolutely true. But, you know, one of the leading lights of new urbanism, Jane Jacobs, one of the focuses of her commentary about urban planning was, you know, eyes on the street and having a population right in the villages, right? And the idea is that by having people living right there, they're looking at the street, they're keeping an eye on what's going on, they make people feel safe. By feeling safe, they encourage people to come out and animate the area at night. So, you know, if you want to create a neighborhood that is active and things going on at night, you got to have people looking at the street as a way of keeping it safe. So having that population right in the village makes a difference to how the village functions and how it is animated at night. So I think it's true that that little development isn't going to change the world, but the addition of more and more and more eyes on the street over time as the Steveston area redevelops will be the thing that ultimately makes it a vibrant, livable community. So I would strongly encourage you to not advance this bylaw and to revisit this either through further community consultation or simply toss it and stick with the original bylaws and the original policy. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir. Oh, there's a question from Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, through your worship. Thank you for coming out to speak, Mr. Westermark. I just have one question. I know how you feel about the residential and that you would like to see more of that. But I'm hearing more the primary concern from some people being about the height of the buildings. And we have the height of the buildings as a separate amendment on this. It's broken out into 3 parts. If by chance council was going to revisit, would be willing to revisit the heights and we went back to a higher height, such as 15 meters, similar to the Blue Canoe, instead of this 9 meters, do you think that would satisfy a lot of the concerns that you and others in the community have? Or is the residential piece more important?
I think that at the end of the day, the residential is more appropriate. And one of the fundamental problems with commercial uses, office and such like, is that it hasn't been very successful on second floor and above locations. So if you look at the 3rd floor of the building that houses the Blue Canoe and the Catch restaurant, that 3rd floor is office space, quite a large office space. It's been on the market looking for a tenant for approximately 4 years, and they aren't getting any bites. It's just not a very, there's no parking associated with that building. It's got lots of beautiful views. It's gorgeous space, but it just isn't attracting the office uses. If that space was converted to residential, it would be either rented or sold overnight.
Some of the properties along here are already zoned for a caretaker suite for residential and some aren't, like the one that needs the rezoning from industrial. Is the one you're talking about that's an office, is it already had an allowance that could be a caretaker suite, or would that need to be a rezoning?
I couldn't tell you. I would assume that it's that particular building is a site-specific zone, and it may not permit residential.
Staff probably knows, but I'm sort of dropping it on them.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because I know there's a few along there that already have the zoning for that.
Finish with the delegation.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
I'd like to move the motion.
No, we're not
More
finished.
speakers?
We're
Oh,
not
sorry. Oh, I
finished
apologize.
speakers.
Sorry about that.
of this gentleman here. Now, who else would like to speak to us? Come on forward, come on. Who else would like to speak to us on this item on the agenda? Okay, so you'll be the last speaker.
All right.
Go ahead.
My name is Ken Chow. I'm the architect for that project, the infamous project, 3880 Bayview. My office is Interface Architecture, 11590 Canby Road. I've been working in Richmond for 27 and a half years. Other than saying I'm closer to retirement, I've been, I feel I know the area well. I've done several projects in the village, and I have 3 on the go in the village. And until now, I wasn't totally clear how I was involved in this project until Lauren came up and said that he brought my name up. I feel that the direction that this is going in is not right. And as an architect, I wear 2 hats. I work on behalf of the client for this site, but I also have understanding and responsibility for the public and the area as a whole. So my comments will be both project specific and in general. I'll make it brief, but a quick recap of the site is in 2016, the client fully understood in writing that a 3-story mixed-use building, residential included, was permitted at 1.6 FAR and 3 stories. So we went and we submitted an application in 2017. And since then, for the past 5-6 years, the goalposts have moved. So in 2017, the OCP was changed from 1.6 to 1.2 FAR and from 3 stories to 2 stories. And we were grandfathered with understanding that we were to meet the DP conditions to get that grandfathering. So fine, we went ahead. In 2019, the Dike Master Plan was presented to us, and we were told that we had to raise our building by 1.5 meters so that in case the Bayview Street was raised by 5 feet, our building would work in both scenarios. But the Dike Master Plan had 2 options, and the preferred option was actually at the dike aligned with Steveston Island, not raising Bayview. But still, we redesigned the building to be raised 1.5 feet higher. Following that, there were other changes, such as the access to the waterfront being from the east side to the west side, which I feel is also wrong, because the access should be aligned with the end of First Avenue, like so that at the end of the street, looking down the street, looking south, you'll be able to see the water. There were then this issue with the no residential. Backing up a little bit, I feel that the proponent is an ideal proponent because they are proposing a marina. They actually own the Nanaimo Yacht Club, and they want to do something similar here, where they're running a business that provides moorage and lessons for boating, and that's fully appropriate to the village. Since we applied and presented our latest option, there has been no design development to reduce it to 1.2, 2 stories. We have done internal studies, but we haven't presented them yet to planning. But we weren't given a chance to do that. So if we are given a chance, we will have some other solutions to present. Now, changing hats, changing hats, I presented a few points at the first reading, which I'll just quickly recap. That from a policy point of view, that the OCP direction or the amendments should have a longer-term view, not just short-term view, changing a few uses, disallowing a few uses. So it should have a longer-term view. It must recognize that there's a increased focus on tourism, housing need. And even if these units are not affordable low-end by having more units, it just has a ripple effect down the line, which provides more housing in general. And more housing in the village has septet benefits. It actually activates the street. It activates life and animates the boardwalk. And allowing residential provides the developer with the ability to provide funds to complete the boardwalk, or at least contribute to it. Another point is that the dike layout, the preferred dike layout, is at the island, not at Bayview. So the sooner that can be clarified, the better. Now, I know there's issues with ownership, coordinating with a lot of different properties, a lot of technical challenges, but that should be considered before we go forward with these amendments. The 5 or 6 properties, the next point, the 5 or 6 properties that we're talking about should be zoned the same. Right now, our lot is industrial. Brian's lot is zoned differently, and the Stevenson Landing is zoned differently. What's proposed in the latest amendments is that we remain industrial. There's no retail, allows a restaurant and some storage. So that's not appropriate. It should be thought of holistically, where all the properties are working together and thought of as a single precinct. And finally, I know about the 17 heritage resources, and they are protected by the Sakamoto guidelines, and there's heritage alteration permits that require their upgrades, proper upgrades. But in general, the village as a whole should not be fixated on those 17. While very important, the rest of the village should be designed in a more forward-looking way. The development of the village should be envisioned, my words is, a new generation of designers that value the past and embrace the future. So when we're gone, there'll be other people that, if we give them a good game plan, could develop the village in a better, vibrant, inclusive way. I've heard various arguments this evening. I was here for the full public hearing. Actually, my office is part of the church group, designing the church group for Davos development. And throughout the evening, I've heard requirements by the city or desires by the city for more amenities, to do it right, to do things right, to think forward, to basically do a better job. And I think if we lock this in with no residential, we're going to limit ourselves and not do a good long-term game plan for the village. So that's my point.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Questions?
Okay, so we'll go for comments, questions. Councillor Day.
I have comments that I'd like to make, but I would also like to move the motion in its entirety. Do you want me to have the comments first or the motion first?
Well, the motion, you do it in parts, so you do number 1.
Okay,
Are you moving that?
yeah, just, sorry. Oh, it's, I'm on the wrong page, I think, sorry about that. Yes, action on reading of the official plan, okay. So we can't, okay, option, sorry. Yes, I would like to move, number 1.
So it's moved, is it seconded? All right, so it's moved and seconded, go ahead.
Okay, so I've spoken to a lot of people about the Steveston waterfront, and people want access to the waterfront with an open skyline as it is now. A lot of people that I spoke to did not want to see a wall of large buildings. They would much rather have access. So on page 252, it states that it is possible that under current zoning, that a residential use can be added to a site through a building permit only with no council approval required if the work involves no exterior alterations or a new building area. So if we don't change this, someone could come along, page 252, and just build residential. On page 253, it states that no public access provisions through legal agreements or statutory right-of-way exist over 3866 Bayview Street. It also states that the owner has a provincial license of occupation over the water lot for commercial purposes only. On page 253, it states that presently no residential developments exist on the lot south of Bayview. And later in the paragraph, it says that if there was, it would undermine the city's objective of maximizing public use and access along the waterfront. On page 260, the Steveston Harbor Authority has no objections to the changes, and I think that's really important. On 259, it states that we should reduce the maximum height from 16 meters, which is 52 feet high, to 9 meters, which is 29 feet high. And this change is recommended by our city staff. If Tourism Richmond was sitting here today, they would tell us that the existing Steveston Harbor and Boardwalk is the top tourist attraction in Richmond. And the public existing access to the waterfront was not possible when there was cannery buildings along the water, when there was, as Mr. Westermark said, a street wall of industrial walls in the old historic Richmond. That was then, this is now. We don't want to see a street wall of industrial walls. We want to see it open and accessible to the public. So I think that this is extremely well done, and we should pass it without any amendments. Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you through the chair. So we're just dealing with the first part, right? The risk of being repetitive from planning and from council. I didn't support this then, and I won't be supporting it now. And the idea of having, a wall of tall buildings, nobody's talking about replicating what we had historically 100 years ago. I think what the heritage, aspects mean is that you will have some, reasonable replication of what existed before. But just to move on, I've said before and I'll say it again, we should try to separate policy from specific applications, but in this conversation, they have definitely been intertwined. So, heritage is a priority, I think, for all of council, and it certainly is for me. I've spent quite a bit of time volunteering on it. I think that there has been perhaps a lack of consultation in this process. I would like to make a referral at some point when your worship says that that's okay. And we've heard about the plan from 2009 and 2017. The residential over commercial aspect is nothing new. We're not breaking new ground. I don't want to be too repetitive again, but I do believe that it makes areas vibrant, lived in, active, and we heard a little bit about that from Mr. Westermark. It does animate the waterfront. In terms of the boardwalk and public access, nothing we're talking about tonight, no matter which way this goes, is going to eliminate public access to the waterfront. Development of some kind is going to be needed to actually get public access to the waterfront because it's not a continuous boardwalk right now. There's a couple things that interrupt with that happening, and that probably won't be resolved in the short term, no matter what we do here tonight. But what is proposed does include continuous boardwalk, and everything that people are talking about includes public access to that boardwalk, just like what exists right now around the Ketch Building and around Salmon City. So that's not going to be deterred. So I won't be supporting this portion, number one, in terms of restricting residential development there. The number of residential units that could be put into this place are pretty tiny. They're not going to solve the affordable housing crisis. They're not going to solve the housing crisis in general, but it does help, I think, create a more vibrant, lived-in, literally and figuratively, waterfront. And I would like a referral opportunity at some point, Your Worship. Thank you.
I'm just wanting to make sure, my question of staff, before I go to Councillor Liu. We've got the numbers. The first one is 371, which is no residential, and 392, which is height. Can you tell us how you've joined those two together? Or Mr. Hopkins? Who?
Through the chair, in response, item 1 under council consideration should read as action on amendment bylaws 10371.
Yeah.
Which is the OCP amendment specific to not allowing residential, and 10372, which are the accompanying zoning bylaw amendments.
I wondered if that was
So
the
those
case.
should be paired
Okay.
together, correct?
All right, now let's clarify the rest of it then. For number 2, it says 372. Should that be 392?
Through the chair, on action or council consideration item 2, that one should be specific to 10394 as a standalone bylaw.
What about 10393 and the other?
10393 and 10392 are specific to the height matter. So to summarize, 10371 and 10372 are specific to the residential prohibition.
Right.
Bylaws 10394 are specific to the minor amendments to deal with non-residential use amendments. Bylaws 10392 and 10393 are dealing with the reduction of height from 20 meters down to 9 meters.
So in other words, what's on the floor is the issue of residential, and the numbers are 10371 and 10372, right?
Correct, Your Worship.
Okay, then there will be a number, so looking forward, where we're going. So number 2 will be the specific uses issue, and that's 394.
Correct, Your Worship.
Okay, because there was 4 or 5 specific uses. And then we'll have a number 3, which is 392 and 393, which is the height.
Once again, correct, Your Worship.
Okay, good to get that sorted out, and then we can,
What's number 4 then?
well, just a minute, so.
That's 6.
Yeah, there will be 6, but let's just get through, see how many of the first 3 we get through, and then where we go after that, all right? So we are on number 1, which is the issue of no residential. Okay? Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not really sure what the problem is we're trying to fix here. I hear that there's talk about concern about access to the water. I don't believe that there's a conflict between the historical context and public access to the water. So I don't think that's the height. I don't think that. I think when they talk about, my understanding when staff talks about people living on the water and then it limiting access to the water, the access gets affected because people are pulling in and out of the parking spots. Well, if we didn't require them to park right there in the same plot of land as they're residing, then that solves a lot of that. So when we go through our new OCP and we stop building our cities for cars and start building our cities for people, then we can get rid of some of these parking requirements. We can build our cities for people. People can walk around. You can have your little tow bag that you pick up your groceries in and toddle it over to your house. You don't need to deliver everything. You know, I think you can, it's a very livable place. It works. And so I don't think we should be moving residential. If the concern is that people are just going to buy it and only live in it every once in a while, and what we really want is someone to be staying there all the time, people who are going to eat and shop and support the arts and be there, then maybe we should zone it hotel so that there's lots of people there all the time, every night, and there's lots going on. But that's a different conversation, I think. I think we want people living in that space. I'd like to live down there, and I'd happily give up a car to do that. So I'm not gonna support that.
All right, now, Councillor Hobbs, you wanted to make an amendment, was it to this? The residential
No,
part?
referral.
Or a referral or something? Go ahead.
Yes, through the chair, I wanted to make a referral on all the amendments, but we haven't discussed all of them yet.
Well, we're gonna go through it one by one.
So do you want me to wait till the end, or?
Might as well get started.
Okay, well,
Because the next thing I'll do is call the question.
Sure, all right. Well, I'd make a referral on number 1 here. Sorry, I don't have the bylaw number written down in here. To staff, the referral to staff for public consultation in the context of and with emphasis on the existing heritage plans.
Okay. I was just wondering, seeing whether we could combine 2 and 3, but let's just,
I'm open to your guidance on
let's just do number 1 first without, and we can deal with the rest. Okay, so is that seconded?
Second.
Okay, so referral on the heritage plans, et cetera, has been moved and seconded. I'm gonna call the question on referral. Those who are in support? I'm sorry?
I'm not clear of what that is. I'm not clear
What?
what the referral is. I'm not clear what that would do.
Well,
Someone
Counselor,
speak to it? Or did you already?
well, the mover can speak to it
Okay.
more.
Sure, I think we've heard a bit about it when you think of the plan, through the chair. When you hear references to the plan of 2009 and the review of 2017 and comments around the lack of consultation and lack of public consultation. And actually, one of the delegates who wrote into us tonight spoke to that as well. So the referral would be for staff to develop, in my mind, develop a process of consultation in the context of the existing heritage plan and the review of 2017 to review this amendment to the bylaw to see if we should do it in terms of height, in terms of residential, because from what I've seen so far, we really haven't had that happen yet.
Okay, I understand.
So there's your context. Counselor Au, on referral.
Yes, then my question is, how is this going to fit in the OCP process that we are going to have?
Well, I'll draw on all my expertise through the chair, Councillor Au, and I'd probably defer to staff and let them describe how that would fit.
That process is gonna be a long one, and if we can only do 99% and not this little bit, we can accommodate it one way or the other.
Yeah.
You know,
I think in fairness,
that
though,
won't be a
in
problem.
fairness, I think it would be part of the the plan that exists from 2009 and then the review in 2017. It would be done in that context.
Counselor Day.
Won't be supporting the referral motion because we are going to do an OCP review. And if down the road, we need to revisit residential uses, even on a case-by-case basis, we can do that. But in the meantime, let's protect the waterfront. So I will not be supporting the referral motion.
I'm not going to support referral, but it's not because I want it to go to the, be revisited sometime later. I just don't think residential is a good idea in that space. I think this is the cornerstone or one of the key focuses of Steveston. And so I just don't think that residential fits. It fit to the east of number 1 road in a very big way, but I don't think it fits here. So I'm going to call the question on referral. All those in favor? Those opposed? So it's defeated with Councilors Galanders, Day, Wolf, McNulty, Heed, and the mayor opposed. Okay, so.
Action on second and third for 7100 by law 10371 and 10372.
What was the first part? What were you saying? We're going to call the question. Is that what you said?
All right.
No, it's already on the floor.
All right.
That first part is on the floor, so.
I'm just reading it out to make sure.
Well, it's 371 and 372.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed? So that is carried. Councilors Al, Lou, Hobbs, the contrary. Okay, so
Second
then.
and third on bylaw 394, 393.
No, just 394.
Okay.
That's to eliminate those 5 uses in that one area. Staff, is that
I was
correct?
only,
Through your worship, 10394 is the minor amendments to the non-residential uses as referenced, the
Okay.
5 uses.
Just the one, just
Just
the one bylaw.
And it's a zoning bylaw
Okay.
amendment, correct?
so moved.
So that's moved, is it seconded? And it's seconded. Okay, anyone wanting to speak to that one? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Sorry, what?
I need to ask a question about that.
Go ahead.
Sorry. It's because I came into this when it was already at reading, so I just don't know every detail about it. If we're removing all those uses, then what uses are remaining?
They were, if you look to the report, they were just some ancillary uses like an animal shelter. There was 5 or so uses that are being removed.
Oh, okay.
Can someone specify what they are?
Through your worship, in response to Councillor Galanders, if you refer to attachment 5 in the staff report, that's PH 266. The table at the bottom of the page identifies those uses that are proposed to be removed, which are auction minor, animal shelter, car truck wash, fleet service, and recycling depot for those sites which have IL zoning. For the sites that have CS2 zoning, which are 2 of them, the removal would be for recycling depot. And for the Steveston commercial and pub zones at MU10, the use would be the recycling depot. The table on top identifies all the remaining uses that would remain to be permitted in those zones.
Thank you.
Make a nice recycling depot. Anyway, okay, so we'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried with Councillor Au opposed. And then we,
Adoption of bylaw, we got one more.
392,
And 393.
no, it's second and third for 392, 393, which is height. Okay, so that's been moved and it's seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? What? I keep asking if there's anyone wanting to speak to it. Go ahead.
That. So did Councillor Hobbs. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I know it's a long night. I have a question to staff. We did get a submission from, we've gotten a couple of submissions about the height and just it not following the original plan. And what one writer said that if we allowed higher buildings, such as the ones of the Blue Canoe, they would be narrower and there would be better view corridors to the waterfront as opposed to a lower 9 meter. They would be, the developments would probably go more horizontal and block more. Do you see any validity to that?
Through your worship, to Councillor Galanders, the provisions for the building height would also need to comply with other parameters in the plan specific to access between Bayview Street to the water as well as waterfront access along. That would be primarily dictating breaks in the building form that you have. The resulting building mass, whether it be a 9 meter or taller building form, would basically result in a design which is still of a similar style, but perhaps less in terms of its overall scale. So a 9 meter building form could certainly be designed to have a cannery building typology and shape, but with a lower building height, it would be done to a lesser scale. But the breaks in buildings would be dictated by the public access provisions, which are already established in the plan.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair. I did support this previously at planning, but I have changed my mind after talking to a number of people in the community and reading several submissions and taking into account the heritage plan that was done. And I'm not going to repeat all my comments before about access and the boardwalk, but I won't be supporting it. And I would like to also refer this to staff for the same rationale that I tried before, for greater consultation in the context of the heritage plan.
So you're moving referral?
Second.
Okay. Councillor Day, are you talking on referral?
I can talk to that too, yeah. I'm just gonna talk to the motion, but I can talk to that
Well,
too.
you're going to just now talk about referral.
Just the referral. Yeah, I won't support the referral back because we have heard loud and clear that people want the size of the buildings to still allow for a view of the water. And there's nothing to stop a development from saying, okay, we go to 9 meters.
Merits of referral.
The referral is not necessary because even without it, if someone wanted to make an amendment to a particular peak or a design element to create more of a cannery building, that's still possible. So we're not saying that, it absolutely has to be 9 meters and that's it, hard deck. We make amendments all the time to these bylaws, and so there's no need for it.
All right, I'm going to call the question on referral. All those in favor? Those opposed? That is defeated with Councillors Galanders, Day, Wolf, McNulty, and Heed, and the mayor opposed. Call the question on the matter.
103,
Yeah.
2 and 3.
Yes. Right. It's just been a long night. Okay, so all those in favor? Those opposed? So it is carried with the 3 councillors opposed. Okay, so.
Adoption.
Okay, adoption of number.
371 and 37.
Okay, so that's moved and seconded as adoption. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Carried with councillors Ao, Liu, and Hobbs opposed.
Adoption of
394,
394.
which is the specific uses. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried with councillor Ao opposed. And the last one is 392 and 393, which is height. So that's moved and seconded. No further discussion. All those in favor? Those opposed? It is carried with councillors Ao, Liu, and Hobbs opposed. We could stay here longer, but, okay, we're adjourned.
Who wants to stay? Come on.